Good morning. I think I am sharing here. Audience view. I apologize. It's automatically sharing. All right. So I apologize for that. There's technically or always technical issues at the beginning with me. If you are familiar with URL and my webinars, I'm Deb Wilkinson, and I really thank you for joining in today. We're really happy to have this ICHRA awareness webinar series. This is the first of 10. We have one today for SureCo, and I'll introduce Jason in a few minutes here. And then today from 2 to 3, Benefit Bay. Then they pick up again on every Thursday, starting the 19th through October 10th. And we thought as a brokerage, it was really important to offer some education and a place to get your questions answered and to really deep dive into each of these ICHRA election and enrollment solutions, because they all do have their own niche. Some work better in the larger group market, some work better in the larger group market, and some in the smaller group. Additionally, on the webinar series, we have 2 of our local carriers, Capital and Highmark, joining in to present how they are adapting to this new surge in the ICHRA markets, which, certainly I think is important for all of our attendees and agents within Central PA to understand. But I also wanted to share a few figures and house cleaning items. Obviously, everything's being recorded, and you'll get a recorded link after the fact. If you want to register for just one of the webinars, you can do that, or you can register for all. So if you've not registered for all of them, I would encourage you to go back to your link and register for all. Because even if you cannot attend, you'll again get that recorded version, and it will be available on our website as well. 97% of groups of 50 or more currently offer group health insurance. So you may think, oh gosh, that's not an opportunity. But in my world, and I'm sure in Jason's world, what that means is that these groups have been through the underwriting, they've been through the level funded, they've been through the fully self-insured, possibly a consortium or a captive situation. So those groups are all ripe for talking about ICHRA, simply because they're being priced out or could be priced out at this point. So tremendous opportunity. And SureCo has a stat, which I'm sure Jason will share. 42% of medium and large groups are now considering the ICHRA model. So to me, again, that just screams opportunity for all of us. So again, thank you for attending this webinar and signing in. I'm going to turn it over to Jason. Please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll ask those, or I'll get those answered at the end of the webinar. But for now, I'm really happy to have Jason Pappas. He's the Northeast Regional Sales Director for SureCo, and he is here to talk about what SureCo does and what they can do for your groups. So Jason, thank you so much. Take it away.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Deb. Hey, everybody. So I'm Jason, and like Deb said, I run the Northeast for SureCo, based out of Buffalo, New York. And yeah, it is like, I don't know if it's like this throughout all of the Northeast, but it's a beautiful blue sky kind of day. We're like, as football season's kicking off today, we're like just getting into that fall weather. It's perfect in the Northeast right now. But you guys don't want to talk football. You want to talk ICHRA. So just really quick, couple things to kind of help me out throughout the course of this conversation. Can somebody do me a favor and just put something into the chat? Like, let me know that you can see the first slide on the screen, just so we can make sure that that whole side of things is working as it should. And then I'll start. Yep. Okay. So I see Deb in there. Somebody else pop something into that chat for me and just let me know it's working. Okay. I see Libby. Great. All right. I've got everything I need. So just really quick intro to me, and then we'll start talking ICHRA. So I've been doing ICHRA really since ICHRA became a thing. We'll talk a little bit about the life cycle of ICHRA in just a minute. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for throwing notes into the chat here. And we'll keep using that chat throughout the course of this conversation. I've been doing ICHRA since it really became a thing back in 2020. And since jumping into the world of ICHRA, I've gotten to function in kind of operational roles, financial roles, and also compliance roles. But I've spent the bulk of my time in the ICHRA world working with brokers and consultants and helping to guide their clients through an ICHRA exploration process. So a lot of what I want to do today is give you all a feel, of course, for SureCo. I'll give you some really quick ICHRA 101. And I also kind of want to walk you through what that ICHRA exploration process looks like. So first, let me just start out by telling you a little bit about who SureCo is. So SureCo is focused on large group ICHRIS. That's all that we do at this point. And for us, we define large as anything over 150 eligible employees. We really focus in that 250 plus market, but we'll go down to 100, 125, 150 for eligible counts. But from just kind of who SureCo is, we're a mission-driven company. We exist to try and make the health insurance world better. And we think that ICHRA is a phenomenal way to do that through a number of different avenues that ICHRA brings about. My personal favorite thing that ICHRA does for the world of health insurance is it drives consumerism at the actual consumer level. The people making the purchasing decisions are employees, not employers. Employers are just choosing how to fund the employee's purchasing decision, which drives something different in the world of insurance. That's the thing that really excites me. But SureCo, a lot of people don't know this about SureCo yet, but it's starting to get out there more and more. SureCo is actually one of the early organizations lobbying for ICHRA. So we really started in the ICHRA space back in 2015, but as an organization, we got started back in 2009. And as an organization, when we first got started in 2009, we existed as an individual and family plan agency. After the ACA, that side of the business really started picking up, and we really kind of laser focused on individual and family health plans. So, just guiding individuals and families through the selection of individual and family health plans. So we grew up in the space of an individual health insurance enrollment brokerage. And then 2015, we started saying, well, we know these plans are strong plans. We see more carriers entering the market every year. We see more plans being offered in the market every year. Why can't everybody have access to these things? Why do you have to take the one or two plans that are offered by your employer? Why can't the employer just give the employees money and let them make their own decisions? And that kind of drove this lobbying effort that started in 2015 on the side of the SureCo team. And went to Washington, spent millions of dollars lobbying, and eventually in 2020 saw this thing pass. And the thing we saw pass is what everybody now knows is ICHRA. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the ICHRA thing in just a minute. But I don't tell you all that to say, hey, the team at SureCo is so wise and prophetic. I tell you that to say we got a head start. And we got a head start in a very specific direction. When SureCo was building their ICHRA product, we knew the whole time we wanted to build this thing for large groups, for those groups of 250 plus employees. And because we were building it specifically for those employers and employees, we knew we had to build it differently. We had to mirror the current group experience. So one of the things I'm going to tell you about as we go through this conversation today is exactly how we do that, how we mirror that group experience for employers and for employees. I think that's a huge part of making this palatable for large groups and making this a solution that really solves problems in a meaningful way for large groups. So that's a little bit about SureCo. Now let's touch on a few other things. I've kind of already hit on the agenda. I'll run you through it one more time. We're going to talk what is an ICHRA, that we'll talk about that next. And then I'm just going to take you through our flow of how we walk a group through, one, determining if ICHRA is the right fit for them and kind of getting them through that analysis phase, and then what it looks like to actually implement an ICHRA with SureCo. And we'll wrap with a bunch of Q&A. because I'm imagining that a lot of the things we'll talk about will generate some really good questions. And as I'm talking throughout the course of this conversation, throw some things in the chat or into the Q&A. I won't answer them most likely. Sometimes you guys can divert me. I'm a constant rabbit trailer, so maybe we'll answer one or two, but I'm going to try and answer all the questions at the end of our conversation today. So as I'm talking and as you have questions that come into your mind, throw them into the Q&A or throw them into the chat. First, I want to this stat Deb mentioned on the front end, this 42%. Where we got that from was a national survey we did in the first quarter of this year. We went out and surveyed a little over 1,000 employers and said, we asked them questions about the current state of group health benefits, and then we also asked them a couple questions about ICHRA, if they had heard of it, if it had been presented to them by their broker, if they were actively exploring ICHRA as a solution for 2024 or 2025. And we got a bunch of results that probably don't surprise anybody here. Rates are going up throughout the country, and those rates going up are causing dissatisfaction both for employers and employees. Employers and employees both feel like those rate increases are kind of unmanageable year over year, at least for a lot of these groups, and it's driving employee dissatisfaction. And another thing you get, and you all may have done some of this, when you go and you survey a group of employees and you ask them what they want out of their group health benefits, a lot of what they're going to tell you is they want more choice and they want it for less money. And that's a lot of what's starting to drive people to consider ICHRA. Now, more choice for less money sounds like a dream scenario, but with ICHRA, in a lot of cases, we're able to achieve that for the groups that we work with. So one of the big stat that came out of this thing, or at least the one that kind of got me really excited, because I've been in this space since the space started. And back in 2021, 42% of employers were not looking at an ICHRA. But now we're reaching this point in the development of where ICHRA's been and where it's going, where we're starting to see the beginning of this inflection point where it's becoming a mainstream idea, or it has become a mainstream idea. As brokers, you've got to be taking this thing to your clients and at least walking them through what it is, how it works, and whether or not it's a good fit for them. Because if you don't, somebody else is. And it's a strategy that's working for a lot of brokers. But 42% of employers are actively considering ICHRA for 2024 or 2025. Now, I've said ICHRA a million times, and maybe not everybody here knows exactly what it is. Let me tell you a little bit more about what the ICHRA actually is. We won't spend a ton of time here because I'm assuming if you're jumping on an ICHRA webinar, you've got a decent idea as to what this thing is, but I'll walk you through it. So the actual definition of an ICHRA is on the left side of your screen. It's the individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, which tells you, in my opinion, almost nothing. So that's why we focus on the right side of the screen, where we just break this thing down into really simple terms. Because at its core, the ICHRA is a really simple thing. It's just an avenue where employers are giving employees money and the employees are using that money to go buy health insurance. But we button it up a little bit more. There's some nuance in each one of those first 2 points. So employers are giving employees money. They're giving them that money on a tax-free basis. The money's earmarked for health insurance premiums, and it's really kind of an allowance. The employer is setting a tax-free health insurance allowance that then the employees are accessing by purchasing ACA-compliant individual health insurance policies. And when I start talking about ACA and health insurance, a lot of people's mind initially goes to, like, you're in Pennsylvania, maybe your mind goes to Penny. If you're in New York, maybe you go to New York State of Health. You think of the state and federally backed individual health insurance marketplaces. But the way that we do it at SureCo is we purchase all the policies directly from each carrier. We have to do it that way in order to enable the pre-tax payroll contributions that we do for the employers, again, to start mirroring that group experience. So on the employer side, tax-free funds earmarked for health insurance. The employee side, they're purchasing plans that are being purchased direct from the carrier, not through any state or federally based exchange, and everything they have access to is ACA compliant health insurance. Now, Let me give you three things to think about as you think about the idea of ICHRA. So, kind of like where it fits and how it helps employers and employees. So, from an employee perspective, it's driving choice in some really meaningful ways. First is individual health choices. Now, I ask people this question all the time, and I always get a lot of head nods. I ask, are health choices personal choices? And everybody says, yes, of course, health choices are personal choices. And if health choices are personal choices, why do we do health insurance the way that we do it today? It's really the only thing left in this old way of doing things. Whereas an employer, the employers are buying policies and all their employees are onboarding on to the thing that they buy. And, maybe they're giving them one policy, two policies, three policies, but the employer is selecting what choice or choices the employees have, even though within a population of 100, 200, 500 people, you have a lot of different unique individual health situations that are going to warrant the selection of different health insurance plans. And in my typical, like if I were to just pull 100 employees out of my book of business right now, I would on average see 25 to 30 different plans selected. And that could be even within a specific geography. We'll see 25 to 30 different plans being selected, which tells us that employees really embrace choice when they're given the choice. Second thing, geographic choice. So you might have a group that's geographically diverse. Honestly, even if they're geographically diverse within a state, like you're going to have some different choices in Western PA than you will in Eastern PA. Same thing in New York State. I'm in Buffalo, New York. I've got different choices in Buffalo, New York than my friends in Albany, New York. So from a geographic perspective, it starts to drive a level of choice too. It enables individuals to work with their regional carriers if they like their regionals. That tends to be my preference. I really like a company called Independent Health in Buffalo, New York. But a lot of people want to work with like the major, they want to work with their blues carrier locally. And Capital's a phenomenal blues carrier where a lot of you are kind of set around. And if you get a chance to work with them, that. So you have that carrier level of choice. You have the health level of choice. But the thing that's really driving a lot of ICHRA right now is what it does for the risk that sits on the employer's plate. Right now, every employer has a financial risk that's tied to the health of their employees and that of their dependents. And they don't have to carry that financial risk. And you all know this, like you have sick people in a population, or you have high utilizers in a population for whatever reason, it's driving up the rates. But the ICHRA pushes everybody to the community rated individual market where the risk isn't just spread out over, I'll use an example of a 500 life group. That's my average group size. It sits right around 500. In a 500 life group, it's still not enough bodies to spread a large risk out over. So the ICHRA pushes everybody to the community rated individual market where you have larger pools to spread the risk out over. It ends up making the risk more predictable over time. So we've continued to see pretty stable rate increases year over year. And that's something that employers are asking for. They don't want these crazy 20, 30% jumps because they have somebody in their population that gets sick. So ICHRA 101, that's it. Like that's how ICHRA works. Those are some kind of the core reasons that groups are making the decision to investigate and potentially move in to the ICHRA solution. Now, let's keep pushing forward. I'm just going to hit on this one really quick. A lot of you probably know this, but ICHRA didn't come out until 2020. So 2020, ICHRA came out. 2021, this is when you started seeing a lot of the platforms launch on a national basis. So 2021 is when we really started onboarding folks into the SureCo ICHRA. And 2022 through 2023, we saw massive adoption throughout the ICHRA space. And this is when this thing really started picking up. But in 2024, this year, we've seen something that we haven't seen in the past. And that's where, when I was talking about that potential inflection point in the market, we're starting to see something that's similar to what we saw when pensions shifted to 401ks. And this is a very similar shift in that way. Because the pension used to be something where the employer provided the benefit to the employees, said, hey, here's your retirement benefit. I will give you this thing. I will manage this thing. And eventually we all started saying, well, why? Why do we have to do it that way? Why do employers have to be the ones responsible for that? Why can't the employer just give the employee money? Or maybe the employee can put some of their own money in too. And the employee can figure out how to best invest those funds, and they can even transfer that from job to job if they end up moving companies. And everybody kind of jumped into that model. That pension to 401k shift happened. That's a little bit of what I believe we're starting to see in the world of health insurance. Now, I don't say that to scare anybody. I don't know that everybody's going ICHRA in 2025, but it's a massive shift that's happening in the market, which I think is why we have the level of interest around it that we do. So now let me start taking you through how we walk groups through this exploration process in the world of ICHRA. So you'll see on the bottom of the screen, we kind of go through this 6-step process. There's a lot that happens in each one of these. I'm going to fly through them for your purposes. But first step is we determine fit. Then we go through this population and financial analysis side of things. Then we start getting into this migration and implementation phase. So I'm going to tell you how SureCo does that. From there, we move into an education phase with the employer and the employees. And then we hit open enrollment. All of the work that we've done in those first 4 steps ends up leading up to this big moment of open enrollment. And then after open enrollment's finished, there's a high level of ongoing support and ongoing administration that happens within the ICHRA that we'll talk more about in just a second. But this is the path that we're headed down over the course of the next few slides. So first thing, determining fit. And a lot of you, this might be something that you really came to this webinar hoping to learn more about. How do I know if a group is well suited for an ICHRA? How do I know the right group when I'm talking to them? So let me give you kind of a few ideas here, and then I'm going to give you kind of the big reason that most groups end up making this switch. But we'll run through a few. So say you've got an employer that, their employees want more choice. You can't get more choice than an ICHRA. In most states, you're looking at 30 plus plans that employees are going to have access to. They're going to have access to different networks, like narrow networks, broad networks, bronze level, high deductible plans, HSA eligible plans, up through, your gold level plans. So choice is a key characteristic of the world of ICHRA. So if that is a problem within one of your employers, ICHRA is a solid solution. I'm going to skip over the second one, multi-state employee footprint. Maybe you've had to build some kind of big PPO network to fit this large national or multi-state type of group. Even if you've had a group where, maybe they're just with one regional carrier for a little while, and then they start buying up other companies, or they start adding a remote workforce. Then you've got to expand this thing out, and you've got to have this big PPO that covers everybody. With ICHRA, everybody can buy plans in their local market. You buy plans where you live. So this starts to solve that problem for groups that have a large multi-state footprint for their employees. From a size perspective, we've talked about this a little bit. SureCo will go down to 125 eligible employees, but we really focus in on that 250 to 10,000, 250 employees to 10,000 employee market. And this last one on here, this was really the first ICHRA I ever wrote was this type of client. They were forward thinking, seeking long-term solutions. It was a manufacturing client. It was a generational type of business, and the son had taken over the business a few years before I met him, and he started saying, I don't think the way we do it makes sense. I want something that's going to drive this company forward into the future as I lead it. And he saw the ICHRA. Me and him had some phenomenal conversations, just high level conceptual, and then we started working together with the broker on the account and driving this thing forward. And there was savings there for the employer and for the employees, but the thing that drove the initial consideration was they were a forward-thinking group that wanted to see something out of the box and different to drive a long-term solution for the company. So those are some kind of key characteristics of groups. Now, the biggest thing is number 2, the thing I skipped over. Maybe they're a high risk population for whatever reason. There could be a lot of reasons that a group is a high risk or high utilizing population. And there could be a lot of ways that you identify that. Maybe maybe they've been seeing, really high double-digit year-over-year increases. That could be it. Maybe they're just in one of those industries where they start out high right out of the gate, like nursing homes, or like trucking, or construction, or manufacturing. Those type of industries, they're getting high rates right out of the gate. And they get those rates for a reason. But when those groups can escape the experience rated large group world and move into the community rated individual plans, it's a way to drive savings and to install a more sustainable solution for the groups. So for a lot of the groups that we're working with, that's a lot of the reason that we're seeing them make that shift. So that's why I want to take us to point number 2 on here. Oh my gosh, did I not share a different slide? I've been talking through this and you guys missed it, but we'll send out the slides afterwards, don't worry. So I'm going to cruise over this one, and hopefully everybody just listened real close for this one. So the second thing I want to start to talk about is this population and financial analysis that we do for your groups. So what we're going to ask for in order to do this financial analysis is just a census, SBCs on the current plans, and rate grids with employee-employer splits. Now, when you all send that over to us, what we're going to do is we're going to go out to the individual marketplace and we're going to start to pull in plans that could be considered comparable plans to the current group health plan. We'll show you, what the lowest cost plans available are. We'll show you what the lowest cost silvers are, the lowest cost gold plans are. But the thing that I think really matters in doing an ICHRA analysis is seeing how comparable individual plans stack up to the current group plan from a pricing perspective. Because if all I show you is what the lowest cost silver plan costs against the current group plan, maybe the current group plan or the set of group plans that are offered are not silver plans. You could show the group lowest cost silver plans in the group world, and that would make more sense than the thing I'd be doing if all I did was show you the lowest cost silver plan. So what I do is I go out to the individual market, we pull in comparable plans, we start out with pretty high level of what a comparable plan is. I'll show you what those are in an analysis. It'll look something like this. And we'll start out really honing in on, hey, what are the total monthly costs of the current group plans compared to the total monthly cost of comparable individual plans? And then me and you will kind of go through this process of figuring out, hey, are these really good comparable plans? Like, I want your voice in that process. It's a huge way that brokers and consultants add a lot of value throughout this. And from there, we'll take it to the client, we'll show it to the client, we'll say, hey, we found that comparable individual plans to your current group plan. And, before I go here, it's worth noting, there's very rarely perfect comps in the individual world, but we get as close as we can from a comparable perspective. I like to lean generous if I can. So if I can, I like for the comps that we pull in to show, lower deductibles than current. Maybe we do better in some of the other categories, but, I really want it to be a little, even plans are maybe a little bit better than what they have today. So from there, we'll go to the client, we'll say, hey, like the example on the screen, hey, we found that the individual market is about 25% less than your current group plan. Let's chase this thing down a little bit further. And then we have a conversation very much like the one that we just had, where, I'll walk them through ICHRA 101. What is ICHRA? How does it work? Then we'll walk through kind of the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of ICHRA, specifically how SureCo does ICHRA. Then we'll start going through what's the employee experience? What's the employer onboarding experience? Talking through some of those things. What's the support side look like? And we'll get to that in just a minute. But we have this kind of concept call. So we start out total cost to total cost analysis between the group world and the individual world. Then we get into a concept call with the group. If we can check the box for concept and check that financial box for the employer, like be able to show them savings at that total cost to total cost level, Then we get into a conversation around how much money do you want to give your employees? And we start talking them through different contribution models and ways to handle employer contributions. And from there, after we get through kind of those three phases within this financial and population analysis, then we move into more of an onboarding phase, because at that point, the group should really have everything they need to be able to make a decision. And it'll all kind of come out in those three sections: that initial analysis, the concept call, and then the contribution design call. All of their questions, comments, concerns typically come out, and we're working through a decision-making process with them. And that all of those pieces are things that me and you are partnering together on with your clients to deliver this solution. So the conversation might start out with you giving kind of a high-level overview on what is ICHRA, how does it work? And if the client's interested, that's really when you'd bring me in, and I would be your partner that would be kind of chasing this down more specifically with you. Or some folks, when they take me to their clients, they say, "Hey, Jason's our resident ICHRA expert, and he's going to be joining us as we walk through the solution." So things like that. But I'll partner with you as we work through the ICHRA exploration analysis with the client. So from here, we've gone through ICHRA concept with the group. We've gone through high-level analysis. We've gone through detailed contribution design. Now, there is one thing I do want to hit on in the way of contribution design. I won't spend a lot of time here, but if you all ask me a couple questions in the chat or in the Q&A, I'll come back to this later. Contribution design is an important part of an ICHRA. I think you have to be really specific in how you do contributions. I really like to create contribution models for employers that mirror the methodology of the way the individual market is priced. So the individual market is priced based on the geography of each employee, the age of each employee, and then the age and number of dependents. Contributions should really be designed in the same way, so that you're not creating purchasing power parities between different populations in an employer group. Okay, so Deb's going to be the first one that tests my ability to wait until the end, and I'm going to fail right off the bat. Deb asks, do I prefer single year age banding, 5-year age banding, or 10-year age banding? I prefer single year. Because if I do a 5-year age band, well, then the people at the younger end of that age band are going to have more purchasing power than the people at the older end of that age band. I want to keep purchasing power the same for every employee. So I want to give a different contribution to a 35-year-old with a 40-year-old spouse and 3 15-year-old kids than I do for a 40-year-old employee with a 35-year-old spouse and 1 kid. They should have different contributions, because for the same plan, they're going to have a different price on the individual market. So I'm going to leave that one there. If you all want to ask more questions, I'll dig deeper. For now, let's jump in to this next phase. So the group says, "Hey, we've got everything we need here, and I've gotten them everything they need. We've done the discrimination checks, we've done the affordability calculations, we've gone through contribution modeling, employee classing, age banding, census review. We've gone through and done all the things and gotten the group everything they need to make a decision, and then they come in and they say, all right, they're ready to make the jump. And this is not an easy decision for a group when they get to this phase and they say, all right, let's do it. Let's make the jump to ICHRA. But they've made it, and they've said, hey, we're going to do it. Then we get into this phase of migration and implementation. And I included a quote here from a client. It's from a client up in Boston, RFK Community Alliance, phenomenal nonprofit partner for SureCo. But the HR leader there said, every company tells me they'll be an extension of our HR team, but SureCo really is. Our migration specialists really got to know our team and quickly addressed concerns as soon as they came up. So what's going to start to happen here is you're going to start to feel why SureCo is a fit for large employers. For all of our groups, we give a lot of wraparound from like actual people. This is not just a technology solution. There is technology involved, but this is a service solution. And there is a lot of people that wrap around the client. So, and I'll touch on it in a minute. I won't get too ahead of myself here. So let's start talking through a little bit of what the service side of the organization looks like. So every employer is going to have a migration team that's going to walk them through educating their employees, how to train everybody. They're going to walk through getting the platform set up, and they're going to walk through integration. And most employers, especially, once you're over that 500 mark, you're going to see, like, you're going to have a dedicated payroll implementation specialist. You're going to have a dedicated education team. You're going to have a dedicated account manager. You're going to have access at, pretty much every level of SureCo. On most of our implementation calls, there's one of the co-founders is jumping on the call, introducing themselves, saying, "Hey, we're really glad to be partnering with you." So none of our clients feel like a number. They know that they are partners. And they're all like, the client will also, and so will you, have access to decision makers at the operational level within SureCo. So if anything goes wrong, and no process is perfect, if anything goes wrong, you've got access to decision makers. You can call the person that leads ops at SureCo and walk them through the thing that's going on, and we will jump into solutions very quickly. The employees are also going to have a support team. So, whenever they need to, they can call us, I guess, whenever they need to within business hours, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. They can call us, they can email us, they can chat with us, and we will be there to support them throughout the course of the year. We also have a team that exists as a compliance support team. So we're making sure year round that the clients are getting everything they need from a compliance perspective. So when we're in this migration phase, there's a lot of questions that come up. But there's questions that come up even before we get there, and that you all probably have now. Maybe some of these. So, questions like, will SureCo support my HR team during implementation? And, we're striving to make sure that we are. And we don't want to just support the HR team within the organization. We want to be an extension of that HR team. People will ask, is the implementation timeline flexible? And we're building this thing in a way that we've got our set processes. Like, we've got ways we like to do things. We've done this once or twice before. We know how it all works, and we know how it works the best. But of course, we exercise flexibility. We're working with large organizations, and every one of them is a little bit different. So we've got a lot of pre-made processes and materials, but for almost every group, we're customizing those to fit the group and their specific needs. And it's worth touching on right now from an implementation timeline perspective. Like, how much time do we need? The ideal for a large group moving to ICHRA is that we have 90 days, so that we have their decision 90 days before their effective date. We can work with less, but I really don't like to work with anything below 60. And you all will find this, because some people will come to me and they'll say, "Hey, Jason," like I had one yesterday. They said, "Hey, Jason, I need a group to go live on October 1st. And I just told them, no, I can't do it. Like, we're not the fit for that kind of organization, for that type of implementation. There might be other folks that are. It's just not SureCo. We're laser focused on creating a phenomenal employee experience, and our reputation means everything to us. We can't have bad employee experiences, and when you try and rush it, that you're very susceptible to that happening. So we like 90 days. We can work with 60 from an implementation perspective. Does your platform work with my HRIS or payroll system? We'll walk through this during the exploration phase, but the answer is largely yes. Like, we're going to, and I'll show you all the payroll systems that we do work with, the ancillary vendors that we do work with. But the goal for us is to have a connection into the payroll system. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, of why we do it. But we will walk through making sure that the employer feels comfortable with the answers to these questions. And then, there's more and more support that we're going to be providing throughout the course of this implementation. So we're going to make sure that everybody is trained up. So that, we're building each customer a platform like specific platform for their specific contribution models, their specific integrations that are necessary. So it's a very kind of bespoke process that we run through. We're going to go through team education, training. We're going to co-brand materials. A lot of time we'll co-brand the materials with the brokerage or consultant that we're working with. We'll put together all the communication and compliance documents. We're going to get all their reporting set up. I'll show you more of that in just a second. And the customer service team at SureCo, or like the team that's going to be guiding employers through this onboarding process, has had zero turnover. People on this team really love the employers that they get to work with. A lot of them come right out of the HR field, and they're focused on serving the employers and employees that they get to work with. I think it brings a really high level of job satisfaction too. So let's keep cruising. Implementation timeline. This is our typical implementation timeline and what it all looks like. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I just want to kind of get this in front of you. You can look at this again when we send it all out afterwards. But this is our typical 90 days and what happens within that 90 days. We're going to go through some initial calls, everybody getting to know each other, walking through process. We're going to go through HRIS scoping and setup, ancillary scoping and setup. We're going to finish building out the platform. We're going to do a bunch of testing. Then we're going to get into open enrollment. After open enrollment, we're going to start funding these policies. So SureCo will pay for all the policies. Like the employee is going to go through the SureCo platform. They're going to pick their plan in the SureCo platform, just like they would pick it in any other Ben admin platform in a group chassis. They're going to go through the SureCo platform, pick their plan. SureCo is going to handle submitting the apps to the carriers, submitting the binder payments to the carriers, and submitting ongoing payments to the carriers. So that's what's happening in these last couple sections here. Now, we've talked a bunch about integrations. I should drill down on that a little bit more specifically. So from an integration perspective, our goal is to integrate into the HRIS system. So we want to have a connection in there so that we can facilitate those employee deductions, because when I was talking about contributions, you all may have kind of started getting there already. But the thing we want to be able to do is, the thing that happens is you're going to have a lot of different employee contributions because you've got a lot of different plan prices and you've got a lot of different choices. So you could have, in a group of 500, you could have 500 different employee deductions, which would be a nightmare to manage on your own. So in order to facilitate an ICHRA for a large group, these HRIS connections are crucial. So we're looking to set up an API level integration into the HRIS system. And from there, we'll be able to feed in the employee deductions. Those will automatically feed from the SureCo platform into your HRIS. And then you also won't have to do double work whenever somebody's onboarding or offboarding. You'll just go into your HRIS system. You'll enter in the so-and-so's onboarding, so-and-so's offboarding. It'll automatically flow over to SureCo and kick off an onboarding or offboarding process on our end. So those integrations are crucial, especially as we're working with large groups. And those integrations we have on the HRIS side, but also on the ancillary side. So if your group has, and most of your groups do, especially your large ones, if your group has ancillary benefits, dental, vision, life, AD&D, whatever it is, we can integrate those products into the SureCo platform so that an employee can go in and SureCo can be the one-stop shop for all of their benefits. Now, the thing we're going to install is your group ancillary products. We're not installing a SureCo individual product there. We're going to take your group ancillary products and install them into the SureCo platform. And depending on the ancillary carrier, it'll work just like any other Ben admin platform. The employee will select the thing. It'll automatically enroll them. So like we have an automatic feed to the carrier where we'll get them enrolled, and we'll also feed the employee deduction side of things back into payroll again. So you can start to see how those connections and integrations really start to make this thing feel just like the group plan. Because in the group world, your group plan's plugged into the HRIS. You've got pre-tax payroll deductions that just happen. You've got the payment to the carrier that just happens. The employee doesn't need to be involved in the payment process. Same thing with SureCo. So we're going to do those pre-tax payroll deductions. The employer is going to send SureCo one payment every month, just like they do today. And SureCo is going to handle distributing those payments to each carrier on behalf of each individual. The employee never touches a payment source, and they never should. This is like maybe just one of my personal biases within the world of ICHRA. If you give an employee a payment source and put them in control of paying for their policy, you're inviting disruption into the process. You're inviting error into the process. And, a few years ago when ICHRA first started, it was fine. We were in this COVID era, and it was a forever long special enrollment period. And, if somebody's policy canceled, maybe they didn't pay for it and it canceled, you could get it back for them. It's not like that anymore. If a policy cancels, like say somebody doesn't, say that you gave an employee control of making their own payments and they went and paid, they didn't make the payment and the policy canceled, they can't get another one until January of the following year. So SureCo controls the payment. We don't involve the employee in the payment process at all, and they're not involved in it now, so they shouldn't be involved in it when you make this switch. Okay, so let me just show you a few of the systems that we do integrate with today. This list is constantly growing, but these are the ones who we integrate with today. So on the payroll side, we've got UKG, ADP, Workday, Paycor, Paylocity, Paycom. There's a few more, but this kind of hits the majors. And for most of the groups that we're working with, again, you get over 200 employees. This is largely who they're working with on the payroll side of things. On the ancillary side, this is a small overview of the carriers that we do have integrations with. There's a longer list. I can get it to you as we work through processes together. Okay, now let's start talking through the education side of things. We won't spend a lot of time here. But on the education side of things, we've got a lot of pre-built materials for your employees and for the employer. And we're going to go through these phases of education. So we're going to go through these phases of communication, one with the HR and executive team, making sure that they have everything they need. We're going to go through designing a specific communication plan that will start at the executive level, move throughout the HR level to communicate this change to employees. We're going to help you with templates, with timing, everything. We'll have flyers, handouts, whatever kind of different pieces of collateral the employer needs to get the message out to their employers. We'll get all that out to them. We'll have specific guides set up. We'll have videos. We'll have PDFs. We'll have Q&A sessions, whatever the group needs in order to educate the employees. And we're going to do a live open enrollment session, just like you would in a normal implementation. We're going to do a live open enrollment session where we're walking the group through, what is an ICHRA? How does it work? What's the SureCo platform like? What is all the support they're going to have? How can they get a hold of SureCo to get the support they need throughout the process? And then we'll spend a bunch of time starting to teach them, here's how you should think about making a decision as it relates to your health insurance. Because for most people, this is the first time they've ever done this on their own. Before, the employer and the brokers always pick the policy for them. Now they're actually going out making their own health insurance decisions. So we're going to guide them through that process and give them every possible resource that they want in order to make the decision that's best for them and for their families. So from here, we actually get into open enrollment. There's all this buildup up to this moment of open enrollment. And one of the big questions we get here is, won't this many choices overwhelm my employees? And this was a question that came up from a current client, Anuvu. You can go to the SureCo website and pull their case study if you're interested. And the answer, surprisingly, is largely no. In some states, we've got up to 100 choices available. And the answer is still no. So we're going to provide employees ways to whittle down the market. They're going to be able to go in and look up their preferred doctors and their preferred facilities. They're going to be able to filter plans based on metal tier and plan types and costs. And they're going to go through this entire phase, this discovery phase of finding the plan or set of plans that fits them best. And again, they'll have access to technology, to educational resources, and to the SureCo team to help them through this process. And one of the things I hear the most is, well, Jason, you don't know my employees. You don't know these guys. Like, this is a rough group. They're not going to be able to figure this out. And I should tell you, I've worked with many of those groups. Most of the groups that I work with are blue collar. And the thing that we've found is in that blue collar environment, they tend to make it pretty simple and they tend to be pretty happy with their choices. Most people boil the decision down to deductible, doctors, and out-of-pocket costs. Sometimes they factor carrier. And that drives a lot of the decision for employees, even in these heavy blue collar environments like trucking, like manufacturing, like construction. We still see 80% of the population goes through the platform and never even calls us, never emails us, never submits a support ticket. They just go through the platform and pick a plan. And they don't, like, the thing to note here is they don't go through and pick a plan begrudgingly and end up really dissatisfied afterwards, because we survey employees afterwards and we ask them, tell me about your open enrollment experience. Tell me about how satisfied you are with your employer's health benefit now that you've moved into this individual plan. And the post-enrollment satisfaction scores have consistently sat between an 8 and a 9 out of 10, which in the world of group health benefits is phenomenal. I would really credit the SureCo team that supports everybody, and also the technology that's been built. It's just, it's simple, it's intuitive, it feels like things that they've seen before. And at some point, I'll give you all a demo of that. Not today, but for the folks that are interested, we'll touch base afterwards. And we can run through a demo of the SureCo platform so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. But that support that they'll have throughout open enrollment is phenomenal. Like, they have access to people, and they generally have very quick access to people. We have 15-minute average response time during business hours. That's for emails and support tickets. When someone calls in, we pick up the phone. The goal is always, on the SureCo side, 0 hold times. Last year, there was a small portion of one day where there was a 5-minute hold time. But the SureCo team is, we want to be there to answer questions. We don't want people waiting around, because we know this can be a moment of anxiety, a moment of stress. And we want to be there to help walk them through that and get them through the plan selection phase, and, really get them into a healthy decision and let them move on with everything else in life. So we do have a phenomenal employee support team that's available for all the employees, the groups we work with. Last thing, ongoing administration and support. So the relationship doesn't end when the client goes live. There's still a lot more to do. So SureCo provides robust reporting throughout the course of the year. We'll typically maintain a monthly call cadence with the employer and yourself, just to make sure everything's going smoothly as it should. We'll continue, as we get closer to renewal, there'll be heavier communication around that, how the renewal is going to work. But throughout the course of the year, we're still there to support all the employees and the employer throughout the course of the year. So one last thing. We talked about this a little bit, this funding process that happens after open enrollment. So so it's always on time, direct payments to the carriers. And if you talk to some of the carriers that we work with, they'll tell you that SureCo's process is buttoned up. We don't miss payments. And if anything comes up, we're working really closely with the carriers to resolve any issues that might happen. But we're going to start out by setting up a direct connection with the employer and their bank account. After open enrollment, we're going to do one pull from the employer's bank account. We're going to send them a funding invoice, do that one pull, and then we're going to start making payments directly to the carrier within a week of open enrollment closing. And then we'll continue to make those payments on an ongoing basis for the employer. Oh gosh, how long have I not been? All right. Well, there's going to be more slides for you all to look over. So last thing. Just to kind of recap the process. So we're going to go through this fit assessment. We're going to go through population and fit financial analysis, migration implementation, education, open enrollment, and then we're going to get to ongoing administration for the group. So from there, we get into year 2, and then we get back, we just kind of recycle 4, 5, and 6 and redo that every year for the group. Now, that's everything I wanted to share. I shared a lot with you guys. I don't always jump into this depth of things, but knowing that it was a group of Deb's consultants, I knew we had to go a little deeper than we normally do. So I hope that this whole thing was helpful. And I do see a few questions in there that I want to get to. So just really quick, it looks like that we've got 2 questions in there. You can add more if you want. But the first question says, if I get appointed by you, do you assign someone to me from your office and help all through? Yes, you'll have a specific sales director that you'll work with depending on where you're located. If you are located anywhere in the Northeast, you'll probably work directly with me and people on my team. And then Deb asked, can you explain how the referring broker is compensated? Yeah, happy to. So we add a fee for you on top of the SureCo fee, and that whole fee gets billed to the client, and that entire fee is discussed right up front, and we build it into all of the financial modeling that we do. So the total employer cost and total plan to plan cost is always going to have all of the compensation for you and for me built into the numbers that we're showing the employer. But the goal, whenever we're creating that compensation model for you, is to make sure you're not losing money. We want you to make just as much, if not more, when you're selling an ICHRA as you would selling a group plan. So there's a little bit of a misnomer in the market sometimes that if you sell an ICHRA, you're going to take a haircut, and it's not the case when you're working with SureCo. If you can't make as much money as you are today or more, it's not going to be the right deal for you. Okay, I think that's it for questions. We've gotten pretty far down. I mean, we covered a ton. If anybody has other questions, feel free to throw them in. Deb, anything else on your end?
No, I certainly wanted to thank you for your time. As you can see, these ICHRA enrollment and election platforms really do take the bulk of the ouches, the pain points out of this process. So I think it's important to, again, know who you're doing business with. Jason's very informed. He's willing to go out there and co-sell with you so that presentation is successful. Again, you can't know everything. They don't know everything, but they sure do know a heck of a lot more than I would venture to guess we all do. And as far as the fees that are built in for the group, for the use of SureCo's system and their administrative and HR support teams, you build in a fee that is paid to you from the group and essentially takes the place of your compensation. So if you have a group of 125 or more, or even, the extremely large groups, not necessarily even in Pennsylvania, nationally, please reach out to Jason. Jason, do you want to offer your contact information? And of course, you can all reach out to our ICHRA team here at URL, and we're happy to get you introduced to Jason as well.
Certainly, and my contact info should all be on the screen for you right now, but my email, jpappas@sureco.com. I've got my number on there. You can call me at 917-590-0162. You can call, text, whatever works best for you, but happy to connect with you after this. If any of this has been interesting to you, if you have groups that are considering this or that should be, I'm happy to have a deeper dive conversation with you and start looking at some of those groups together.
Absolutely. Well, happy selling, everyone. Thank you for taking time to be informed. As Jason mentioned, groups are asking about it, so now you have an answer for them, and it can only benefit everyone. So thank you again for your time. If you're joining us for the afternoon session, we'll have Benefit Bay from 2 to 3 today, and hopefully I will see you again then. Jason, I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully next time you're in the Harrisburg area, give us a call, and hopefully we can get together and talk about your ICHRA successes.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Deb. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.